Hello and welcome to my review of the LEGO set 75337, the ATTE Walker. This set released in 2022 with its current retail value sitting at $140. The set includes 1,082 pieces as well as 8 minifigures. Now this is a bit of a belated review of this set, but please stick around because I have a lot to show you coming up on why this is still one of the best value sets you can buy in 2023 with the amount of potential this set has. First, let's just start off with the box design here. In my opinion, I love this box design. It's one of my favorite out of all of the LEGO sets I own. I just love the black and bright orange border going around this, as well as the clash, yet somewhat like mix in tone between the brown and the gray of the vehicle. And the back of the box will obviously show you all the play features that come along with this. Now these panels open up here, but what you might not be able to tell is that these panels on the side also open up quite a bit. And next, every point that the box might have earned for its design and how it appeals, the instructions have lost. Everybody has kind of covered this at this point, but the instructions are very basic in their cover. It's just a gray and white background with a Star Wars logo and a pretty poor 3D render of the actual build. It's ultimately just not very appealing. I don't know why the corporate lords at LEGO decided this would sell to kids, but that's what they've decided. Now getting to the part where a lot of y'all might actually be interested is the review of the minifigures. The minifigures included in the set are going to be 8 of them, but really about 5. It's just the same old battle droids we've had for many years. LEGO isn't losing money by making these. It's very hard for me to consider them a important minifigure included in the set. You can buy these things for less than $1 sometimes. But the figures that everybody's going to be really excited about here is the Commander Cody, the 212th Troopers, as well as the 212th Gunner. Now, there's been some criticism of the design of the clones here, but ultimately, I think if you're someone that just kind of wanted clones this year, I don't think these are too bad looking. A lot of people have pointed out the holes on the side, and yeah, I don't really like how on the side holes, especially in bright lighting, you can kind of see the skin tone underneath. I would have preferred if these things had like black heads underneath. I'm not particularly attached to the clone heads, but that's just what you get. And I think in this set with everything it's included, they're not too bad, but they're not too great. Now, actually moving on to the builds here, you're actually going to have 2 builds in this set. Now, there's one important build, one not so important build. The first one here is going to be the, I believe, I don't know what this is, a spider droid, I believe. Some people have said that this is inaccurate. I think I've heard that it's supposed to be a crab droid. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't watched the movies in forever. I don't really know. I don't really care. In my opinion, it just doesn't look that great in the first place. I know that might be a little picky. In the keen eye, some of you might notice that one leg is a different color. That's just because I broke the dark gray one that I had, so I had to use a light gray one. But ultimately, y'all didn't come here for this. Let's move on to the ATTE. The first thing I want to get onto here is just the absolute size of this thing. For $140, in my opinion, this is big for new LEGO. I have seen a lot of LEGO sets come out recently for $30, $40, $50, $60 sometimes, when there's just sets that are like supposed to be half that price. But this does not disappoint in its size. If you can even manage to get this with VIP points, or you can manage to find this on sale, or maybe even on clearance once you start to get towards the end of its lifetime, as we are coming on a year of this thing being out, this is a wonderful build for its price. You are not going to be disappointed in the money you spent. And now actually getting on to the play features here, little to say, there's a lot of them. This set has a lot of playability. The first one being here, that you can even pull off this little cockpit. I suggest pulling it by the bottom because the top is somewhat fragile, as you can tell. It's just some panels and 1x4s. but you can seat the gunner in here if you'd like, and then just slot him right back in to this spot, and then he'll fit in there all nice and seamless, and you can barely even tell that's a separate piece. I just love how they integrated that. But that's not the only part of this that opens up. You saw on the back there that you can open this back section up. Now, in my opinion, if you really want to open this section up, you're kind of likely to break this little sloped piece off. So I would open it up like this, where you can open up the panels on the side here, fold them out, and then just sort of separate it like that. And now you can really open it up here, and if you want to do exactly what they did on the box, just fold these parts back in. Now you've got what they had there. Now, these guns kind of hit whatever surface they're on when they fold down, but I guess you can kind of look over that, or maybe you might even like it if you wanted support for these things. But that's not the only part that opens up. That part opens up, and this part opens up. Everything on this build opens up, and you'd think it might just be for like, oh, well, they had to fit the panels on some way, but no, it's like very intentional. It's not just to put the panels on. It's because you can actually get access to all of the seats that are in here. There's even a little storage crate over on this side as well that have some like goggles in them, which I lost, so I'm not gonna show them on here. But everything that you could want to get access to, you can. Now, the final but obviously kind of most obvious play feature is going to be the big gun on the top of this thing, and obviously this doesn't fire because it's just Technic pieces, but they're going to do what Lego always does and include the stud shooters right on the side as well if you'd like those. And something a bit more obvious that you might have already noticed, but this thing does in fact have a carrying handle. Lego tends to do this on a lot of their larger sets like this, like some ships or some walkers. But it also has some legs, but they're not very posable. I guess the one here is, and you can kind of make this one walk. But the legs on the side here really aren't going to go far enough for you to make this thing walk any. They're just kind of there for the stability and the look of the build. Ultimately speaking, this is a very sturdy and robust build with some things that can come off, like the front of this cockpit here. This little tile can come off if you just hit it wrong. And this spot I've noticed as well is a vulnerability. And if you wanted to know how big this is into comparison of some other things you might have, here's a white base plate, 501st speeder, which you might already own if you had this set, and a brick separator. The size dimensions for this thing are actually going to be about a foot or 12 inches lengthwise, including just the body. But if you want to know the length, including the guns here, it's going to be about 17.5 inches from the end of this gun all the way over to the end of this gun. The width of just the body is going to be about 5.5 inches, and the width including the feet are going to be about 9.5 inches. And the height of the entire thing is going to be about 7.5 inches tall from the foot to the top of the gun right here. For the first mock, here's a gunship designed by the YouTube channel Icarus Studios. The link will be in the description in case you want to build this for yourself. Now, firstly, in my opinion, this doesn't exactly fit a clone gunship. I do think this is a good spin-off of a sort of separatist adaptation of a gunship, and I think this would fit with some other minifigures that I'll show you in a minute. But I think we should also mention that this isn't really a play piece. It does have functions that I will show, but it is somewhat fragile in many areas, with many bits sticking off that can easily be broken if not careful. To start off with the easiest piece that I think is the most easy to break off, it should be these heavy guns right here is what they call them. They're really just kind of attached like the very end of one of those axle pieces and 4 studs, it stays on and you can move it around as well, but like if you're like moving your hand around and you accidentally bump it, the guns are just gonna go falling off, and it can be kind of distracting, especially if you're trying to like be immersed in the play features or something like that. As well, this is probably the other most fragile part of note. This is not connected to any studs here, it just sits right on top, and then this piece comes down over it and covers the whole thing, kind of just holds it in place barely. But if you were to turn this whole thing like upside down, this is very likely to fall off. It is probably not going to stay on. The other part of this little part right here that is also very easy to break off is this section, because again, if you just barely bump it, this thing is just attached by 2 studs and does not hold on the greatest. I'm just gonna set this down. And then you have like this thing right here that can also come off. But now that's just kind of like nitpicking some of the fragility of the pieces. But still, I'd say this part and these parts are very easy to break off. But the part that this set exceeds in the most is the play features. Because, well, obviously, as you can tell here, it has 4 guns. But what might not be as obvious or expected is if you go right under here and you flip a Technic piece up, these doors come out. They fold out, and they actually can go quite far back, so you can easily get your hand in there to put any minifigures inside. And you can also do it for the other side here. Just flip another piece up, and then the other door opens, and it becomes very spacious and very easy to put any minifigure you could want in here, especially the minifigures that come along with the set. You're not going to have a hard time putting them in there. As well as, I know I showed this during here, but this can take off as well. And there's little spots for you to put minifigures in. They have the little seat pieces and even little command spots for them to control the ship with. And if you are interested in just how large this set is, the length of the ship is about 9.5 inches long. The width of the body here is about 3 inches long. And the height of the ship is about 5.5 inches long. The wingspan is going to be about 10 inches. All of these numbers are approximate. These aren't like exact numbers, but that's going to be about the relative size of the build. And if you do want any size comparisons for things you might have at home, here is a brick separator. It is most likely you probably have one of these. But if you want to compare it to a set, here's also a 501st land speeder from the previous 501st set, and a white base plate, just in case you want to know that as well. And now with the second and my personal favorite of the 2 alternate builds, this Venator class Star Destroyer by the YouTube channel LEGO Ohio. The link for this will be in the description if you want to build this set for yourself as well. Now this is a beautiful set. LEGO Ohio used the pieces absolutely magnificently, making all of these details just right. And I thought it was beautiful. It is my favorite alternate build I think I have ever built, although I have not built very many. But I just loved it so much that I even decided to use my own pieces here and build a nice sleek stand to be able to display this at a 45-degree angle. I had a wonderful time building this. It uses a lot of very interesting techniques that you don't see too often. One of my favorites was this little side panel here, where there is a window, and that window piece is not held in by any studs. It is only held in by these curved cut plates here that just hold the corners of the window down. And I just thought that was a brilliant design by LEGO Ohio. Now, it doesn't utilize all of the pieces. You will end up with a bag about as this many pieces left over. Maybe a little less, because LEGO Ohio does have a small little side sort of like black speeder build for you to be able to put all the clones in. Now, I personally decided to omit that from this video because I mainly wanted to focus on this here. But again, even though I love this set, it's not without its flaws. It is somewhat fragile, where these pieces can easily pop off if you hit them wrong. I don't believe this thing is held on the best either. And these here, in my opinion, really bugged me with how you can just kind of bow them in like that, with like adding these weird little curves because you accidentally picked it up wrong. But even with that, it's got all these amazing little details, like being able to incorporate the round red circle around this round tan 2x2 plate. I just loved this build. It was such an enjoyment. It's got a very complex underside, and although they had to omit the bottom panel, they still managed to make it seem like there was one by putting these little things right on the edge poking out, so that you just get that perfect silhouette of a Venator class Star Destroyer for you to be able to display on your shelf. Now, to properly display the size of this build, this laying flat on the table is going to be about 17.5 inches long from end to end, 8 inches wide on these wingspans, and from the bottom of the ship, so about here, to here is about 4.5 inches long. Now, if you want to be able to get a better comparison for what you might actually have in your Lego room, here is the size comparison to a brick separator, a white base plate, and a 501st speeder, considering many of y'all might be Lego Star Wars fans and might already own this set for yourself. And in conclusion, this is one of my favorite sets of not just 2022, but maybe even of all time. It is a very nice and sleek looking build that still manages to pack in a lot of play features and remain sturdy. The minifigures might have been a little lackluster and not the greatest that they could have been, but if you're a fan of clone figures and maybe even the 212th Squadron in general, I think these are still very satisfactory to add to your collection. And the value that this set provides on its own, in combination with its alternate builds, is reason enough for you to continue buying this into 2023. Now make sure to stick around for a potential part 2 to this video, where I have purchased 4 extra sets to add on to this build, and it will be showing off another alternate build that I promise you do not want to miss out. Now thank you for watching this video, and I hope you can go down there and click the subscribe and like button, and I'll see you next time.